Hey everybody, NFT fans, welcome back to the NFT podcast. I'm your host, Eugene, aka Crypto MC, and I'm here today with Oleg Ivanov. He's worldwide renowned entrepreneur in the crypto industry, brilliant networker, an investment professional, DeFi and DAO explorer, co-founder of CryptoBazar and Berezka DAO, author, speaker. So Oleg, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Eugene. Thanks for inviting.
Let me first start with your personal story. How did you get into the blockchain space from a traditional business?
You almost have to say that I took a wrong boat went out for a loaf of bread and then just ended up here, right? But originally I come from the beverages industry, so meaning just your like Coca-Cola's, Pepsi, Red Bull, Unilever, and so on, working outside of Russia and then back in my home country, of course, as well. Then I launched my own energy drink, which was called Tornado Energy. Some of people, in the Russian-speaking community would probably know of it. Sold it off, and then eventually, as I was going through, the procedure of raising capital for this non-tech business, I faced an issue of actually raising the capital because there was no information about it whatsoever, no events. That's how we decided to start what eventually became known as InvestBazar in the Russian-speaking countries as well, where we would be doing demo day events and some acceleration programs, and then lending to traditional businesses. And that ran very well for about 5 years, since 2013, before the regulation changed. And then we had a couple of issues when we were closing down this business by the end of 2018. But then early 2017, when this boom of ICO started, since we were large in the event stage with InvestBazar at that stage, we saw that there were so many events happening, and by participating in some of them, we started going deeper into the topic and realized that there were some things like mining and trading which we had no clue about. But then ICO seemed very familiar because it would be just your startup entrepreneurs who are trying to raise capital to implement their ideas in the future, right? There was just some version of a crowdfunding with DeFi, let's say. And so we realized that we could do something there, but then we needed the expertise. So that's why I first had the found and partnered with Andrei Yudin. You probably know of him or remember of him, who used to be the first CTO for a company called Mail.ru. Again, for the Russian-speaking community, we know it's a huge IT company there. It's like your Gmail for the Russian-speaking world, let's say. So we started CryptoBazar with CB Capital as the venture investments division out of Caymans. And later on, it all sort of moved into where we had CryptoBazar as events division, demo days, conferences, and hackathons, and CB Capital as the venture arm, where we would be investing in lots of projects. And we have invested about, I think, over 60 projects so far since early 2017. And then just to finish it up, when 2019 came and the DeFi started to pick up, we just realized that our background in traditional lending was a very nice fit for DeFi with your lending protocols or DEXs, and that's how Berezka DAO appeared with our asset management via a DAO interface. And
this has been an amazing story. I'm so excited. Everybody in the industry remembers 2017 and CryptoBazar events, ICO events was the bread. So what are your major current project related with crypto? You named Berezka DAO, so on and so forth. Tell please.
Yeah, so we basically, let's say we have two legs, right? And both of them are financial legs. One of them is venture, the other one is DeFi, or we would call it in a way fixed income, not in traditional sense, but anyway. So the venture arm, we still keep investing in the early stage in different projects, DeFi projects and blockchain projects in general. With Berezka DAO, it's basically a traditional asset management where you would provide liquidity to traditional DeFi protocols like your lending protocols or DEXs. So we would be in terms of comparing ourselves to other large players in the ground. So we'll be very similar to Yorn or Curve, with only difference that these guys, the ones that I mentioned, they are fully coded and automated, which means that they're not very flexible in terms of where the market is moving. And us, we intentionally built our asset management platform in such a way where you would be capable of moving and adapting to the market realities via voting. And that's why our interfaces are actually helping us to bringing very, very nice returns even on stable coins, as opposed to the ones that I mentioned. So we definitely generate much more returns than the guys that I just mentioned. And just to finish it off, so when we're diving deeper into DeFi and DAO, we realize that it is quite hard for your typical, even like crypto user, right? The guys who are very deep in the interface in the industry, to number one, understand what like a DAO interface is, and number two, actually build something around it. So you can open a wallet, you can open a multi-sig wallet, but then open a DAO by yourself and manage it, using interfaces is very, very cumbersome. So that's why we started building a series of, let's say, tools for ourselves as Berezka team to actually help us manage our assets within the DAO infrastructure. But then eventually, we're moving all these tools under another umbrella, which is called One-Click DAO. I don't know, you probably heard of it. And with One-Click DAO, this is something that we internally are calling this thing as a Salesforce CRM type interface for DAO deployment and management. So it's like if you want to manage your clients in traditional business, you would need a CRM or ERP system, and you use it, right? So you for different purposes, you set it up, your way or maybe with somebody else's help. In here, the same. So you have one interface, you open a DAO by yourself, you manage it by yourself. So some of the things are already working, some of them are being built. So that's what we're playing with at the moment.
Sounds super intriguing for all future DAO founders. Our goal today is to explore your opinion about NFTs. I'm sure you couldn't have missed that. So how do you explain what is non-fungible token or NFT?
Well, I'm sure you've done a series of talks already on this, so it would be very bad to repeat myself because everybody would probably be saying the same things. But anyway, so yeah, non-fungible tokens, these are just your traditional crypto tokens, mostly, starting on on Ethereum and then moving on to some other layer 1, layer 2 blockchains, which are unique. So, well, that are, that cannot be replicated, they cannot be split or whatever. They're unique. And this idea of uniqueness, of course, can be applied in different forms. So that's just on the surface of. I'm sure you don't need all the technical, details of explanations here. And apparently, this would probably be enough.
Okay, we all faced NFT hype in digital art space in 2020, 2021. How do you explain the possible reasons for that? Like an entrepreneur or a crypto investor, what are the reasons of this hype?
That's a very good question, and it's every time when you look into something that was growing or showed growth, it's sometimes it's a bit complicated, sometimes it's very clear. But in my opinion, this story about NFT actually started as a combination of warm up with DeFi, and then in a way, a copy-paste model of what we've witnessed with ICOs. So, which in a way is a little bit of a one-way street, in my opinion, again, for all these projects for now. If you recall the ICO boom back in 2016, 17, then you would definitely remember the wave of guys who were pitching off the stages, trying to sell their tokens, raising capital to implement some of the ideas. And there was, for the majority of projects, apparently there was no secondary market because there was no DEXs at that stage. There were all decentralized exchanges, and they were flooded, of course, with all those thousands and thousands of new tokens. And eventually it all ended up because the secondary market was not there. Not everybody was successful, apparently, because they are startups, you know, and just in general, in any industry, every startup, I mean, when you look at the amount of startups, the amount of those who actually survive is minimal. So with NFTs, in my opinion, again, we've pretty much witnessed the same. So you saw a bunch of guys who initially showed very interesting traction with like huge amounts of money being raised on selling NFTs in various industries, right? In gaming, in collectibles, in even traditional arts. Actually both ways, right? The, you know, taking the physical arts and putting them on NFTs and vice versa as well. And so this attracted a lot of attention from opportunistic people, and they just started replicating the successful stories. So they would start, I mean, you would start seeing lots of NFT platforms who would be copying the success of Rarible, for example, or, you know, some other guys. You would have some artists who would be trying to actually put their collections on NFT again, and so on and so forth, right? So that's why it just created a certain boom where people saw an opportunity of something being very hot, people not really, you know, understanding what it was and how it would work as step number 2, as step number 3. So you had the selling side actually warming up the whole idea, going around, you know, selling the thing, trying to raise the capital for them. And then you know, after the cycle is over, you usually end up with people that are sitting there with tons of tokens on their hands, now NFT tokens at the moment, and well, asking them some questions what I can do with them at the moment. And I think that's what we started facing early this summer, and are still in this period of, at the moment for now.
Great explanation. We saw a lot of legal issues which seem to be unsolved till now regarding NFTs during hype. What legal issues, the same legal issues regarding NFTs, would you mention?
There's quite a few, of course. I mean, the first being the fact of how you actually link your unique digital rights to the physical world and how you protect yourself. So basically, if you do fund an NFT and it's your unique thing on one platform with one image, technically, from my experience, there is no limitation for even yourself, to be honest, to fund another token on the same platform of the same image. So it would just be another token. So and there is no protection against that. Not to speak about other blockchain protocols, right? So if you issue some tokens on Ethereum blockchain, why can't you copy it on other NFT platforms on the same Ethereum blockchain, but also on like I don't know, Polygon, on XDAI, and so on and so forth. So again, the first obvious question, of course, is that there seems to be no protection at the moment in terms of how these NFTs can actually guarantee you those rights against just, you know, the copy paste and all the other things. Second thing, of course, is once you link the digital NFT token to some unique physical element, being it, you know, a piece of art, a bottle of wine, a car, whatever else, then you also have this well, legal friction in between the two worlds. And in most platforms at the moment, things are not really working, you know, as well. I mean, it's not I wouldn't call it like a drastic problem, because again, when you do have new industries, right, things appear as they appear with the speed, you know, that just happens in the market. So apparently there is some inefficiencies, and apparently they're going to be closed over time. because the necessity for NFTs is unquestionable, of course. But yeah, at the moment, it's a little bit, a puzzle that is still not complete, I would say.
Totally agree. If we go beyond digital arts, how do you see the possible use cases of NFTs in the future?
Yeah, that's another very good question, and you probably know that I have a YouTube channel, and I have let's say a podcast that is called Token Stories, and we had a whole like series for this that was devoted to NFT tokens. So out of there, we selected a few elements where NFTs are being used at the moment, and of course can be used afterwards. So to name a few, of course, this just your like traditional NFT art and NFT art from the traditional and the virtual world, where you would you can sort of create something in the virtual world and then sell it off there. Games, apparently, any sort of collectibles. So for from the investment perspective, so all those exotic investments, like your, again, books, coins, wine, arms, whatever you just can imagine in your head, all of this can be replicated on, of course, on NFT platforms. The question, of course, is how you use it and why would you use this. So there's quite a few discussions around that at the moment, but still there's very interesting things. Unique names and domain names. So these are very interesting ways of how to actually use NFTs, where you could, well, I mean, we all are familiar with stories where domain names could be bought out in different countries and then eventually being resold, for like huge amounts of money to corporates. The same can happen on Ethereum and other blockchain networks where ENS names and all the other things can be actually wrapped around NFTs and then be used as an asset to itself. Then, of course, like tickets for events or for access rights to some meetups where you can physically show your mobile phone, and that would be giving you some rights to actually access this event or not. Music, some things around sponsorships and financial support, and then of course in a way a bridge to DeFi in the financial world, anything that can be wrapped around as a collateral in one unit and then be used for financial purposes, right? For lending against this collateral, things like that. And then again, voting rights. For example, in some of our DAOs within the Berezka ecosystem, we actually use NFTs right now as we speak. And we just, for example, if you don't want to give away a lot of weight of governance tokens to a certain person, but then you would need to grant this person the rights to execute some transactions or maybe initiate some transactions for the other people to vote, then you could just have a series of NFTs that would be pre-coded for specific activities. And that within a DAO like ecosystem is very handy, to be honest. I mean, with traditional tokens, this would be a little bit complicated. So yeah, quite a few.
Cool. Absolutely agree. The world is consisting of unique things, so each one of them may be represented as an NFT and used as NFT, and that's a huge story. Why do you think NFTs are so popular in gaming and metaverses especially?
Well, again, one of the, I'm not a big expert in games, as such, in the industry, I would say, right? But as a user, apparently everybody played games, myself included. What I do face, and I see with my kids, for example, or my friends, I see as one of the bottlenecks for them at the moment from the user experience, not from the like game company. You have an issue of a secondary market for the things that you've built or created in those worlds. So say you're a successful player in some I don't know, in some sort of game, and you have some weapons or you have some, outfits, or you build some, I don't know, some assets, let's say, some virtual assets within these worlds. And it would be nice to have, you know, a marketplace where you could pretty much swap those things in between yourself and, you know, some other players. And usually it's not an issue within one game, say, you know, say Counter-Strike, or I don't know, Roblox ecosystem games, I don't know, whatever. But then once you move outside of just one game to like several games, then it becomes an issue. So you cannot swap like one skin in one game to another one and another one. So that was, you know, people were trying to create actually centralized solutions for this, and there are quite good ones as well. Just, you know, skin swap, to name a few. It's a large application with like hundreds of thousands of users and positive cash flows and so on. But again, it's just limited to just probably 2 or 3 games really. So the idea, of course, to expand this, you know, this secondary market to various games is actually, you know, is something that's probably one of the things that's really warming everybody around, as one thing. And secondly, of course, there is this new trend that is being discussed very, very actively at the moment, which is called different names at the same time. So it's either GameFi or you know, how do you call it, play to earn type of game. So where you would actually be able to play the game and actually earn some crypto, which you can later on withdraw and use for your, you know, everyday purchases or for financial you know, purposes. So these type of things are definitely trying to pick up, and of course NFTs are you know, can play a large role in it, being, you know, being very, let's say, genuine in a way, you know, within this ecosystem, providing the uniqueness there.
Well, we may conclude that where do you see the asset, the unique asset? There should be an NFT. You have already told about connection NFTs with DAOs. May explain how NFTs may be connected with DeFi or decentralized finance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the most, let's say, frequently used example at the moment is when you would have a large asset that would be very difficult to buy for retail investors, for the size of it, and you know, just for the amount of money. And so in this case, this asset would be then used, or let's say linked, sometimes via an STO format. So you would have a physical asset, for example, that would be represented with an STO token, which will later on be linked to an NFT. And then this NFT would be used as a collateral, which would then be split into different tokens, representing all of them together, representing 100% of the value of this asset. So so that's like, you know, probably the most used case for DeFi at the moment, where, you know, large pieces of assets are split into smaller pieces of assets, and yeah, and used for this purpose. Probably that, you know, I wouldn't be able to name maybe more than this.
Okay, do you have any predictions, any versions, any thoughts about the future about NFT markets and upcoming, let's say, 3 years?
Well, there's definitely a lot of work to be done there, and I think the most painful bottleneck, of course, now is the legal framework around it, which would allow the issuers and the owners of NFTs to track down all unauthorized usage of those pieces, right? Pieces of art, pieces of assets, or whatever. Because as I just mentioned earlier, right now it can be done easily within just seconds, right? You can flood the market with copies and copies of NFT on the same platform, and nobody can actually stop you, you know, from doing this. So this, let's say, the technical implementation and the legal implementation of enforcement of rights within the blockchain ecosystem is a big painful thing. So I would say, in all honesty, us as the venture investors, we would be very interested to see, to look into those projects who are actually tackling this issue, and to support them financially, of course, because that's something where we see a lot of, a lot happening in the future. But once this story is fixed, then of course all the rest is just is pretty much hard to imagine, because if you can issue and and fix your rights for a specific asset in blockchain, and then you can enforce it, so basically track all the illegal usage, and then follow all the commercial usage and the revenues from this and all. I mean, God only knows where we could be using it. Just the imagination is the limit there, right?
Yeah, totally. Crypto God knows where are we going, where we'll be. And finally, Oleg, you are going to speak at Dubai in October 14 and 15 at WOW, where the Web3 Summit. They will have exhibition, NFT exhibition, NFT auction, so on and so forth. What topic will you be speaking there?
That's a very good question. I know I'm in the agenda there, but I would say, talking about the value, so I would expect that most value I could bring with our insights in DeFi and DAO ecosystem, of course, being the fact that now within Berezka and One-Click DAO, this is where we are really pushing, some of the developments and some of the insights to the very edge of what's happening in these industries at the moment. It's where, I mean, I would allow myself to point out one very interesting thing that I just read recently on Twitter. I can't remember who wrote this, but there was a discussion about the influence and the impact of different technologies or different industries. And the funny thing is that some of the industries or technologies can have a lot of influence because they are very attractive, they're loud, and so on. But sometimes they may lack the impact, and vice versa, right? So as a typical example would be then you would have DeFi as your traditional banking now on blockchain, and with all the benefits and so on. So it is very influential. So it does influence a lot, all of our lives, and eventually will influence it even more. But it is not as sexy as NFTs, right? You don't have Beyonce, you don't have all the sports athletes and so on. So that's why it doesn't attract a lot of attention from like marketing and from the audiences, because there's just no much to talk about. It's just the money and the ways to optimize the procedures of how you utilize it as assets, as payment, means of payment, and so on. And of course, that everything that goes around it and touches on DeFi, because NFTs do touch on DeFi and use a lot of it under the hood, let's say. DAO is apparently the same, and so on and so forth. So in my opinion, what we would be facing in the near future is that the continuous fight in between those who actually make a lot of influence, but influence, but a lot of impact, not with adequate amount of influence, and vice versa, having a lot of influence on the minds because of the media coverage of the sexiest, just basically being more attractive, but probably not having as much influence as your traditional and more boring stuff. So that will be very interesting to look at on the conference, of course.
Well, thank you very much, Oleg. This has been a super educational talk for me, for my listeners. Ladies and gentlemen, you were watching the NFT podcast. It is supported by the NFT protocol. Please like, share, comment, subscribe on the channel, and don't forget to hit the bell button for not missing the future episodes. We're publishing daily. Oleg Ivanov and Eugene, aka CryptoMC, were with you. Thank you for listening, and see you in the next episodes. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Eugene. Bye.